Hi, I'm Drew Hutchison. You're tuned to Local Bias. We come to you from the studios of Greenfield Community Television at 393 Main Street in Greenfield. My guest today is an old friend. Yes, he's getting old. Bart Bales. What's going on with you, man?
Well, first I have to tell you that at age 50, I started counting backwards.
Oh, okay. So you're not so old.
So I'm getting younger and younger every day.
Well, then I sit corrected.
No problem.
So welcome to Local Bias. It's
Thank
been, I think I had you on doing the Yule, Welcome Yule.
Yes.
And that was probably back in like 2006 or something. So
Yeah.
it's been a while.
I think you had me on energy.
Oh, I bet I did. But and in fact, that's what we're back to, because energy is always important.
Right.
And you have information that will benefit the public. So let's hear it. What's going on? What will benefit the public?
Well, first I just need to do a little introduction to let you know I'm just one of the run-of-the-mill songwriting, opera singing, green engineer. You know, they're all dime a dozen, you know.
Right.
But I got into this whole arena. I became an engineer to work on energy issues, not the other way around. I was in experimental psychology and French before the energy issues came to the fore, and I designed my own major and to work on this kind of stuff. And I've worked on big buildings for a long time, but lately I've been working on one specific technology, which is, I think, critical to us addressing climate change issues in buildings, and that's heat pumps, or mini splits. Some people know that kind of heat pump.
Okay, so when did heat pumps even become a thing?
Well, heat pumps have been around a long time. I grew up in a house with a heat pump.
No, you're from the South.
I am. And so heat pumps are really good air conditioners, and they also can provide heat in the winter. And back then, they didn't work down below a certain temperature very well because they'd frost up. And so we had a heat pump that would work for heating in the spring and fall and part of the winter. And then when it needed extra oomph, it would switch over to electricity. Mm-hmm. And where I grew up, we had very inexpensive electricity because it was the Tennessee Valley Authority.
Right.
And so I've lived with a heat pump since I was a child, but there's been a sea change in what the technology is.
Okay, so it's more efficient, or it's easier to install?
It's able to work at very cold temperatures.
Okay.
They can work down to minus 13 and below and still deliver a lot of heat.
And they're just getting that from the natural heat that's stored in the earth?
Well, the ones I work with are mostly air-based.
Okay.
So they take, imagine your own air conditioner, and just think of running an air conditioner backwards. Instead of cooling down the house, you're cooling down the outdoors, and you're dumping the heat that you take out of the outdoor air, you're dumping that in your house.
Okay.
And I would argue that everybody has a heat pump already who lives in a modern house, because there's an appliance in your house whose job is to take the energy out of your food to heat your kitchen. It's called a refrigerator. And it takes the energy out of your food to make it colder, and it comes out the back or the bottom of your refrigerator and heats your kitchen.
But it doesn't noticeably heat it. It doesn't seem like I don't feel too much warmth coming out. It's not like a furnace or a radiator.
Well, you're only having to get the amount of heat that's in a little small volume out.
Okay.
But refrigeration units from stores and things, if you go behind them,
so
they're
that's
quite
condensers
warm.
and compressors and all the same type of technology.
All the same. It's all the same technology, the same servicing, same everything for the kind that I'm talking about, which is air to air. Mm-hmm. You take energy out of the air, you do some magic, and transfer energy to the inside.
Okay.
And basically, a heat pump it almost seems like an impossible thing, because it makes heat thermal energy go from somewhere colder to somewhere warmer.
Right.
And that almost seems like magic. When I teach workshops on this all over the country, and I often say, what is it? It's magic. It's a Harry Potter box. It does something sort of seems like impossible. It's not impossible because it works, but it, if I was going to go into detail, I'd tell what the magic of the refrigeration cycle is. Mm-hmm. But we managed to move heat from the outside to the inside, and we only have to use about a third as much energy to make that happen as we get. So we get we pay for 1 unit of energy, and we get about 3 times that much.
And that's without burning any fossil fuels.
Right.
That's without,
well, the electricity we use.
Right. So however that electricity is created.
In our environment here, the state has requirements that increasing amounts of renewable energy are part of the electricity grid's power delivery, and it's like something like 20% now. Mm-hmm. And so what we're doing is we're getting 2/3 of the energy for free from the environment, and then we're getting another 20% from renewables from the grid. And so it's the critical technology for buildings, for heating buildings, to help mitigate climate change.
Right.
It's the single most important technology, in my opinion, to address that in buildings. And Massachusetts is amazing. We're a leader in this country in all these programs, in efficiency programs and in promoting heat pumps in particular.
Right, and that's in particular, is that through the Mass Save program?
That's exactly right. Mass Save program, basically, when you hear what they're going to do, you go, what's the catch? And the amazing thing is there's no catch.
Well, and I know that, is it every year or every 2 years you can have an audit done by Mass Save? And a lot of times what they do, they come in and they'll just give you a bunch of light bulbs and a power strip or something. But
no, not anymore.
Okay.
No, they'll do that, but they come in and they evaluate your whole house and they go, oh, your walls aren't insulated well enough. Tell you what, we'll finance 75% of the cost of you insulating those walls from the program, and you only have to pay 25% of the cost. And if you're low income, it's 100%. And similarly with the heat pumps, there's anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000 rebate that often the contractors will let them receive it, so you never have to pay it. And so say you buy a $12,000 system and you switch completely to a heat pump and get rid of your oil or gas, you get a $10,000 rebate toward a $12,000 system.
Wow.
And now some systems will be a lot more than that, but and then if you want to keep your existing heating system, you still get a rebate, but not as much.
Okay, so, well, all right. Well, so for instance, I have a gas heat, and I would love to have a heat pump. But aren't there times that I would want to have the gas heat as an emergency backup system and not get rid of it? Or is the heat pump that reliable that...
Well, the heat pump's reliable enough, but I actually tend to think that in many cases, it is just fine to keep your backup system. And I don't always recommend people taking the $10,000 rebate, though sometimes, well, I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah, okay.
Do you have a ducted system in your house, or do you have a steam system, or do you have a hot water system? What do you have?
I think it heats hot water because I have some baseboards.
Yeah, okay. So for baseboards, the system is not going to interact with that system directly. So you could put in the heat pump units around your house if you did the unit kind.
Right, and do those look like just mini splits, basically, or?
Well, there are a host of options.
Oh, okay.
There's the mini splits that are on the wall that everybody thinks is the only thing that's a heat pump, but there's these things that are a little more attractive that are down on at floor level, and they're like cabinets, but they're only about this thick and this wide, and normally they're white, and so they look pretty good in your house. There's also ones that if you have new construction or retrofit construction, there are ones that'll be in the center of your ceiling and blow 4 ways.
Okay.
And then there are air handlers that can hook up to ductwork that are heat pump heads. And so in my house, for example, I have 1 unit outside and I have 1 unit inside to serve a 8-room house, and it's ductwork going around to deliver. And the nice thing is I have an old Victorian, and I kind of wanted to leave the Victorian looking Victorian.
Right.
And so I put in ductwork. So there's registers in the floor, and air just blows up out of the floor. And mostly that's what I do on the 2nd floor too. And so the only way you can know that I've got a heat pump is to look out in the yard and see the unit out there. So that's one of the things I really want to emphasize to people. Many, many houses can be retrofitted to heat pumps. And if you've got a ducted system already, it's really important to consider the possibility of just putting a coil on top of your furnace and then use your ductwork. You just need to insulate your ductwork if you're going to use it for air conditioning. And you can convert that house very quickly with just a coil inside above your furnace, and and it uses the fan of the furnace, and then the unit outside. And that's all you have to have for that conversion. One thing that's important, though, is to have somebody, and this is something that I do as part of the services I provide, to evaluate the capacity of the ductwork.
Okay.
Because the air that comes out of a heat pump is cooler than the air that comes out of a furnace.
Sure.
And so you can deliver enough energy up to a certain temperature, and sometimes the ductwork can't take it all the way down to total negative temperatures. So that's where leaving the furnace in place lets you switch over, say at 5 degrees or something. You might not make it. Interestingly enough, though, most of the houses I've checked actually can completely convert over using their existing ductwork. So one other thing is, if you've already got air conditioning, then your ductwork is probably big enough.
Okay.
And that's something to know. But any of these things they're all heat pumps. Mini splits are not the only show in town for a heat pump. And there are air-to-water heat pumps, too, that let you circulate water around your house to heat with. Now, in your house, you might think, I could do that for my baseboards. But the water isn't as hot as we need for a baseboard. So radiant floor, yes.
So how is this different than from like the thermal heating where they have, I think it was at the Pushkin, Ed Wierzbowski put in a system where I think he had heat pumps in the ground.
Oh yeah, that's ground source heat pumps. The nice thing about those is that the ground is
constant.
Is a closer to a constant temperature. As you begin to take heat out of the ground, though, the ground gets colder. And when you take heat out of dump heat back into the ground, it gets warmer. So it's really better if you're going to do a ground source to make sure you cool too, because and you also need to size the thing big enough that the hole doesn't get net colder every year, and that can happen.
Oh, through continuous use, it actually affects the temperature of the ground.
Permanently of the ground. And each year there are places that people have undersized the ground portion, and the ground will get so cold that they can't get much heat out of it. They get less and less heat out of it each year. But that's just a matter of correctly sizing it.
Right.
The upside of ground source is it's more efficient, and it's continues to be efficient when it's cold out, really cold outside. Air source heat pump, the efficiency goes down
As it gets colder.
as it gets colder. But the slick thing that these modern ones have, and is different from the ones I grew up with, they just speed up the compressor as it gets colder. And so they're able to get more energy out because they run it through more times.
Right, but they're actually spending more energy to get that energy out.
They are.
Okay.
They are. Because the air is relatively colder, not too much detail.
Okay, so and how does it work with solar panels, for instance? It's just that provides an electrical source to provide the energy to run it.
Normally you hook up it's a nice combo to get heat pumps and then to get your own solar, or solar from somewhere else, community solar or anywhere, because then you know what the cost of that electricity is going to be for you. It's what you've invested in the solar system, and it's sort of insurance against price increases.
Right.
But what you need to realize is the solar that's on your own house, if you're connected to the grid like 95% of the people are, what's really happening is the power is going out of your house into the grid,
Right.
and then power is coming back in.
Right.
But the way it works here in Mass, which is great, it's called net metering. You only get charged for the net amount of energy that you use per month. So you make more during the day, right. You use more in the night, and you only are charged for net how much you ended up drawing from the utility because you've sent power back.
And I know there were incentive programs for solar power where you would get renewable energy credits.
Yeah, that there's a little bit of credit for that now. That system is nowhere near as good as it used to be.
Okay.
And I think it's really unfortunate. And for the first time, I believe I read this, is that last year or this year, anyway, or recent year, is the first time that they weren't increasing in how much solar they sold. And it's partly because the incentive programs have gotten less good.
Right.
And, but the good news is solar's cost has come down big time.
Because the technology has improved?
The technology has improved, the manufacturer's improved, and the quantity being made is improved,
right.
Has increased.
So
the scale advantage. When I sold solar in 2000 to 2006, it cost you $10 to $12 per installed watt of capacity. Now it costs you between $1 and $3.
Right.
So it's much cheaper to get. So yes, it's nice to have incentives, but the market has matured to where you can make a good case to go for solar anyway.
Now, of course, one of the issues that is brought up by my friends who are skeptical about climate change or skeptical about renewable energy resources is, well, solar costs so much money because you're digging up all these minerals and you're raping the land, and it's there's a cost there. Just like with lithium batteries, there's a cost to batteries. What is the hidden cost for solar power? Is that being addressed, or is that something
I think the better way to think about it is, what are the comparative hidden costs?
Ah, okay, yeah.
Or not so hidden cost. I mean,
like pollution.
Tornadoes and hurricanes are fairly expensive.
Yep.
And climate change is real. We know that.
Fossil fuels add to that.
And we don't really have a choice. We need to get off fossil fuels in a hurry. We needed to do that before now, and now it's a matter of trying to make it less bad.
Right. Yeah. At this point, the scales have tipped. Now we just have to mitigate it as much as we can and learn to live with it.
Yeah. What's really good to know is when I started in this business, we didn't have all the tools we needed. Mm-hmm. We have all the tools we need now. We have all the technology we need now.
Now it's the political will.
Well, now it's
economic will, cultural will.
It's a matter of just getting it done.
Right.
Yeah, and it's good business. Green businesses are some of the fastest growing technologies, fastest growing industries in the economy, and they tend to promote local jobs.
Right.
Now, there's proviso to that. Most of the solar electric panels are being made offshore.
Right.
But putting in heat pumps, doing efficiency work, insulation, all that's got to be local.
Right.
And so there's a lot of economy there. And what I want to say to any young people out there, the opportunities in this field are amazing. And it's for any skill set that you have.
Well, where would someone look if they say, yeah, okay, I heard there's a great job in the energy field or green energy. Where do they find these jobs? What would they do?
That's a good question. Well, one thing is there's a bunch of good college programs.
Okay.
To learn things. Another thing is if you want to work in efficiency for houses, there's the Building Performance Institute.
Okay, never heard of it.
BPI, and they have trainings, and you get certified in that, and that makes you be able to be a quality insulator, quality builder kind of person, and it increases your value a lot. And those trainings don't take that long to accomplish, much shorter than a 4-year college degree. So there's that. Another opportunity area is in any of the trades. Anybody who used to make fun of people who went into trade school and all that kind of stuff, trade school, amazing amount of work, amazing amount of opportunity. HVAC people, solar installers, plumbers, electricians, all that. There's a shortage of all that.
Right. And
a lot of the people are aging out that do it. And so there's super opportunity in that.
And they're not going to outsource a plumbing job to China.
Right. So there's that. But then there are all sorts of other training programs that I can't really
right. Okay,
bring up
but I mean,
right
if
now.
Someone's interested, the resources are out there.
The one other thing, we'll table that remark. So one thing I want to say is we've got a wonderful resource right here in Greenfield. It's the Northeast Sustainable Energy Association. If you want to work in the green field, I didn't realize I did that.
That's a good one.
If you want to work in the green field, you should connect with Northeast Sustainable Energy Association. They have discounted memberships for students and for emerging professionals who are just trying to get into the field. They have these wonderful conferences that turn you on to all these kind of things and are networking bonanzas for people who are trying to find work. And it's a wonderful way to have an entry into the thing. And if you're you can also offer to volunteer at those conferences and go for free.
Oh, okay.
And work some. And so the Northeast Sustainable Energy Association was very material in me getting to do some of the special work I got to do when I was an advisor to the state.
Right.
They hired me as an auditor at my company. And
to audit the building by the energy park, or as an auditor to go to people's homes?
Audit all the schools in the schools in the state.
Oh, wow.
I was on one of the 6 companies that were doing energy audits in the state. And then I had this state contract that was for doing audits on state facilities. Mm-hmm. But when the state people that I was working for realized I was part of Northeast Sustainable Energy Association, they started assigning me all these cool projects like investigating early applications, solar for Holyoke Community College, fuel cells for all sorts of applications. That I've done probably more fuel cell studies than most people, and that's not very many studies. Right. It's like 5 or something. But and they tapped me to help develop the early guidelines for state projects, high efficiency state projects. So the fact that they realized I was part of NESE, Northeast Sustainable Energy, made them go, oh, this guy knows stuff about all this other stuff, let's use him for that.
Okay.
And it turned me into a different resource for them.
Because NESE was founded in Greenfield, right?
Not technically.
Oh, okay.
Not technically.
Because it seems like they were there or been there forever.
It's been there a long time. I'm not positive, but I believe it started in Brattleboro.
Okay.
But it's been in Greenfield a very long time. And at one point, NESE was going to move away from Greenfield, and Greenfield and was looking for a new home, and they wanted to have a place they owned.
Right.
And that's how we got the building down next to the energy park. And Northeast Sustainable is who developed that energy park. So they don't own that building anymore, but they've moved to a different location now. But that was an important part of them staying in town, was the city helping them get that building, right, and them helping the city by developing that park.
And actually, I remember you had an office in that building for a while.
I had an office in that building, and I also was very instrumental in starting the park.
Okay.
So,
well, it's a jewel, and I've loved seeing concerts there. They have concerts at the Energy Park during the summer on Thursday evenings, and I know the military band plays there as well. I mean, there's a lot that goes on. Yeah. I know Sandy Thomas was very much involved in it as well. There've been a lot, but how many volunteers? I mean, you could just keep naming them.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a few things I want to say before we're done.
Because we have about a minute.
Yeah, one thing is I want to say, one of the things about a heat pump, it's very important to get somebody to do a proper heat load calculation, a real one that measures everything in the house. And because sizing a heat pump properly is really important. Many contractors guess. And
so how do you know if you're getting a good contractor or someone that's actually going to do it right?
You ask them to see their manual J.
Their manual J.
It's going to be too much jargon. Okay. ASHRAE manual J thing. The other thing is I do that. Okay. I do that for people, and I'm a third party that helps people with their get oriented. And
is it okay for people to contact you at Bales Energy Associates?
Yes.
Bart, you wanted to share one more bit with our audience before we left.
Yeah, and a bit is the right word for it. This is a joke. My life has been very different since the accident. I was walking by a loading dock, and a HVAC unit, a heating and cooling unit, fell off and busted open, and the coil busted open, and the refrigerant sprayed on me, and it was radioactive, and it turned me into Captain Heat Pump.
Oh my God.
And now I've been a superhero ever since, and this is me revealing my secret identity. But seriously, these days, I used to focus on all sorts of things in energy. These days, I am focusing my effort on heat pumps. And because I think it's such an important technology, and mechanical systems are the parts of high performance buildings that people sometimes don't get quite right. And so I've been turning my attention to that. I teach workshops on it, I give talks on it, and I'm very much, it's a mission for me to help these happen. So I'm happy to help anybody with it. And always happy to talk about it.
So you think heat pumps are really the best bang for the buck right now, as far as making taking action? What's going to give you the most impact
Bang for the buck, I would say efficiency is. Okay. Insulating and air sealing and all that kind of stuff. After you've done that, you should do that and in the same mindset say, okay, I'm going to get my building as tight and energy efficient as possible, and then I'm going to address the mechanical systems, and the heat pump is a good thing to do then. And then after that, do the solar.
Okay.
But you can do them all together. What I'm just saying is many people tend to think, oh, I throw solar up first.
Right.
The first thing to do is make your building good.
So you're not having the loss of energy.
Yeah, and so that the energy that you're making is being used efficiently.
Right.
And secondly, you do it with heat pumps so that the energy that you're using is renewable, not fossil. Because the heat pump's pretty much the only game in town for non-combustion energy.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you, Captain Heat Pump.
You're very welcome.
And thank you. Take care.